Hey guys, this is Tauna, and today we're going to be going over all the unreleased Final Fantasy commanders that are coming soon. So this is all the ones from the scene boxes, and I am incredibly excited about them. We're going to talk about them. We're going to talk about how I would, potentially build them and some cards that you could potentially pick up if you are looking to get to them. There's lots of fun and interesting options here, which I'm really excited about. There's just some very, very unique commanders. So I'm honestly tempted to build just so many of them. They look really, really cool. And speaking of building things, if you guys are looking to build some commander decks or anything like that, you can get it over to my Ko-fi and support us over there for a deck list and stuff like that. All the money from this, and this is like our final push for it because PAX is going to be happening. I'm actually heading down to PAX tomorrow. All the money from this is going to support our trip down to PAX and everything. So it's just incredibly appreciated, all the support from it. You guys get a deck list, I get some money to be able to go down to PAX and go to this big convention that typically I wouldn't have been able to go to without your support. So thank you so much. And yeah, I'm going to be at PAX Australia tomorrow. Well, it starts on Friday, but I'm heading down tomorrow for it. And if you are there, hopefully they arrive here in time. We're going to have some special promo cards that I'm going to be handing out here, some proxies for just support it and stuff like that. On the front, it's got this here with some fantastic art that was done up for me. And then on the back, it's going to have, thank you, and well as a special promo code for my other job. And yeah, if you're going to be there, you can hit me up on Discord and let me know you're going to be there, and, we can coordinate catching up or something. So let's go through them. The first up, we've got the Garland at the Chaos Shrine. So this one here is based around Final Fantasy 1. We've got Garland Royal Kidnapper here. So when he enters, target opponent becomes the monarch. And then whenever an opponent becomes the monarch, you gain control of target creature that player controls for as long as they're the monarch. So basically we want to kind of use this for theft and stuff because it also gives a big buff +2/+2 to every creature we control but don't own. So this deck is really built around like theft stuff. So the Court of Locthwain there at the beginning of upkeep, you get to exile the top card of someone's library and then you can cast it for free if you're the monarch. So it kind of encourages people to take the monarch away from you, and then you get to steal something of theirs. We've got Hostage Keeper here to steal something from an opponent. Gonti Night Minister I really love as well because it makes it so that whenever you cast a spell, which we're going to potentially do with this Garland deck, whenever you cast a player casts a spell they don't own, that player creates a treasure. So we can create treasures here, as well as it encourages our opponents to kind of go hit each other or come and kind of keep the monarch within themselves rather than kind of give us the monarch essentially. We've got a bunch of flicker stuff. Flicker works really well here because that way we can flicker Garland, kind of keep him as keep someone as the monarch and stuff. However, the important thing to do here is make it so that the creatures that you're flickering, like the creatures that or the spells you're using to flicker, make it so the card comes back under your control, not the owner's control. So like Ghostly Flicker allows it to come back under your control. Same with Thassa. The Chaos Shrine's Black Crystal isn't flicker, but it works really well for flicker because then a creature comes in, has a finality counter, you can then flicker it, and then the finality counter is gone when it comes back in. And then, just more stuff to kind of take advantage of the stuff we're stealing. So Agent of Treachery is going to allow you to draw 3 cards if you have stolen a whole bunch of stuff. Staff of Eden, same, you get to draw cards. And then the Thieving Amalgam, whenever a creature you control but don't own dies, you're going to make it so opponents lose life and then you gain life. But then also at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, you get to manifest the top card of their library. So you get to just create a 2/2 from the top of their library. So it's a card, a creature you don't own, but you do control. So it works really well with this deck. Into the next one here, we've got the Destined Warrior. So I'm not going to talk about each of these individually because they're obviously all designed to go into one deck. But the Destined Warrior is a party-based deck. So Cleric, Rogues, Warriors, and Wizards you cast cost 1 less. And then at the beginning of combat, creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn. And if you control your full party, so that means you control a Cleric, Rogue, Wizard, Warrior, then you're going to give them all +3/+0 until end of turn instead. And then we've got the other 3 here, which is the Destined White Mage, the Destined Thief, and then the Destined Black Mage. They all basically do what they did in the main set. So, Destined Black Mage, whenever you cast a non-creature, deal damage. The Destined Thief, whenever a creature deals combat damage that you control. To a player, you get to draw a card, then discard a card. And then finally, the Destined White Mage here gives whenever you gain life, you get +1/+1 counters. So all 3 of these Basically, do stuff that does more stuff when you've got a full party. But then, and they can grant their ability to something else. So, like, the Destined White Mage gives lifelink, the Destined Thief gives unblockable. But you're meant to have the full party for them. So they all kind of go within the Destined Warriors deck. So that way you get, 3 big, really great cards to have, like, your party members, essentially. So for this one, obviously, you're just going to go into a whole bunch of different party stuff. So, there's a whole bunch of stuff within the Baldur's Gate precon, Orzoth one. So Nalia here lets you cast stuff from the top of your library, then you get to buff stuff up when you got full party. Bureaucraft gets you treasures based off of your party whenever he attacks, and then Linvala this was back from Zendikar, makes it so that whenever at the beginning of combat, if you have your full party, choose target non-land permanent an opponent controls until your next turn. It can't attack, block, and its activated abilities can't be activated. And then you can also sacrifice it to give hexproof or indestructible to your creatures. We've got stuff like Kamiz, Grim Hireling, Midnight Path Lighter here. All creatures that are just, either rogues, clerics, warriors, or wizards that all are just working really well for this combat base. So Destined Warrior is clearly combat based because you're kind of buffing up your creatures and stuff. Combat based deck that are just any of those really good clerics, rogues, wizards, and warriors can fit into this deck. And then finally, there's a bunch of stuff that also just takes advantage of party mechanic. Journey to Oblivion here, exile something until it leaves. But you could potentially just cast this for white if you've got, like, one of each of those. Coveted Prize, again, you could just cast this for black potentially, which is just a tutor of something up. And then finally, the Stick Together over here is a board wipe that you can keep one of your clerics, rogues, warriors, and wizards out, while everyone else likely will have to sacrifice nearly everything that they've got, because the chance that they have one of these is fine, but the chance they have all 4 of them is unlikely. All right, into Final Fantasy VIII here, Children of Fate. So this one here is a couple different interesting commanders. I've kind of broken it down to 3 commanders because there is technically 4, but the 4th one kind of fits into either of one of the other 2 decks. So Ida, Possessed Sorceress here. Again, this is just going to be a theft deck, right? At the beginning of combat, you're going to gain control of a target creature an opponent controls, untap it, against haste, and then whenever a creature you control but don't own dies, return to the battlefield under its owner's control, and you draw a card. So, it's just theft stuff. And then in this deck, you'd likely run the Sifa Balam Rival, but he fits into this one and also fits into the Squall one, which we'll get into in a minute, which is whenever you attack a player, goad target creature they control, and then whenever a creature attacking one of your opponents becomes blocked by 2 or more creatures, it's going to gain Death Touch. So, that just fits into this deck. And, you could build him just as a goad deck, would work fine, but I think that he just kind of doesn't do enough compared to the other 2 big commanders within this one. So with Ida, you just want gain control until end of turn stuff. Most likely, you can get like theft stuff, just steal stuff from the top of the library and stuff like that. That works fine, but just you don't really need to. You can just gain control and then just use it straight away. So, stuff like Captivating Crew, Zara, Mob Rule, just gain control until end of turn stuff. We've got stuff that also takes advantage of this fact that we've got that we're stealing opponent's stuff. So like Don Andreas makes it so that all those creatures will have menace and death touch and become pirates. Or Irma here. So Irma doesn't really take advantage of the fact that they're stolen, but does take advantage of the fact that we can then sacrifice them to get extra combats and just keep stealing stuff, which is great. And then the Beast here, whenever a creature you control, creature deals damage to its owner, combat damage to its owner, untap it and draw a card. So we can gain, deal damage, draw cards, slowly untap this big 6/6, and then also when he comes in, you're also going to be able to steal something. We've got stuff as well that can just sacrifice. Now, Dorothy Voidwalker is actually bonkers with this deck because the big disadvantage, right, of this is whenever they die, return to the battlefield under its owner's control and you draw a card. However, here it's now going to become whenever it dies, you can exile it with a void counter instead, which is good. Then you can also sacrifice with Ashnod's because, we don't care if they die. We get advantage if they die. We get card advantage. Or Ayara, you can use it to just fling their own stuff at them, which is just really funny. All right. And then we've got Squall, Gunblade, Duelist. As I said, we can fit the other guy into here. First strike, when Squall enters, you're going to choose a number. And then anytime one or more creatures attack one of your opponents, if any of those have power or toughness equal to that chosen number, Squall deals damage equal to his power to defending player. So, if you choose 3, then every time, a creature with power or toughness 3 attacks an opponent, you're going to deal 3 damage to them. So as I said, Sifa works really well here because Goad works really well here, but Renoa works as well because now you got flying and stuff, which work great. So with the Squall one, I think the Goad works really, really well with him. Goad is just crazy because now all your opponents are forced to attack and forced to attack someone that's not you. So they're forced to attack your opponents to deal damage to them and stuff. So, just any kind of Goad stuff works really well here. There's a whole bunch of really great Goad stuff from MKM, Cull of Mana, from the precon for that. But, there's also the Carder was a precon as well, I believe, that's also based around Goad. Maximum Carnage is bonks. I really love that card. And then we can also just give our opponents creatures too, because why not? Goblin Spymaster. Boom, here, have a 1/1. Life of the party. Here, have a creature there. We've got Slicer that's just going to be passed around the table, and again, it's just going to make it so that it's goaded too. It's going to be great. And then just double the attack triggers, because why not? With Ishin or Wild Crag Siege, boom, double all those attack triggers. Now you're just going to really rip through people. Buffing up Squall as well is a good idea, which I didn't include here, but stuff that buffed up Squall so that way he's dealing more damage is going to be good, like extra not extra combats, extra combats would be good actually as well, but extra equipments and stuff like that to buff up Squall's good. And then, I said about Sifa, I think that he fits better into either of the other 2 decks. And then Renoa Angel Wings. So she has, at the beginning of combat, creatures you control with flying get +1/+1 and vigilance. Then whenever one or more attacking creatures you control die, you may return one of them to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control with a flying counter on it. So notably, they don't have to, it doesn't matter if they're flying and they die. So this deck is really just a flying based deck. It's just mono white, flying. So, stuff that either buffs up stuff with flying, Momo makes it so that flying creatures cost 1 less. Aerial Assault, boom, you get to destroy a creature and then you gain a whole bunch of life based off your flying creatures. And then you can also take advantage of the fact that your creatures are flying. They're not less likely to get blocked. So, give them double strike. Get extra card draw when you attack with them. Or, give them more vigilance just as just in case Renoa's been removed, just give them vigilance as well. But the +1/+1 works really well here too. And then finally, we're flying. So let's make it so that opponents' creatures without flying can't block, because that's funny. And then, can't attack, because all our creatures are flying, so we can attack with them, and then we can get +1/+1 onto all of them, and then if they die, we can just bring something else back as well. There's just a huge amount of stuff that you can take advantage of here, as well as the fact they enter with flying counters, notably, not enter with so even if they die with the flying counter on, you can still potentially bring them back as well. That's just great. All right. Into Final Fantasy IX, the Siege of Alexandria. Only one from this one, which was Amaranth Coral. So he has Trample. He attacks each combat if able. And then when he deals combat damage to an opponent, it deals that much damage to each other opponent. You'll notice that this is very similar to what's his face? Kedis. So obviously just this is the simplest deck you could ever have, right? This is a deck that I could potentially build for my 7-year-old. All you want is ways to make Amaranth big. So we're going to give him huge amount of damage at the start of combat. We're going to triple his power and toughness. We're going to give him Riot. So either he'll enter with a +1/+1 counter or enter with haste, because why not? More ways to make him big. Give him double strike. So, as I said about Kedis, whenever a commander he controls deals combat damage to an opponent, it deals that much damage to each other opponent. Now, you can make deals with people. You can say, I'm going to swing at you with Amaranth, right? Amaranth's going to hit you for 10 damage, because we're going to give him double strike. We're going to give him double strike. He's going to hit you for 10 damage. Now, with his ability and with Kedis' ability, we're going to deal 20 damage to the other 2 guys. Are you okay with this? people will take that deal because it's hilarious. Yeah. And then we can have Kaeth here, so that way, you know, we can draw cards. We can also use Amarant as removal by, like, having fight spells in here as well, which is similar to, like, my Wolverine deck. And then, you know, our protection. Obviously, if we're attacking each combat, we want protection. So we want protection that also will deal more damage, because why not? We'll buff him up with Strength of the Will. Now he's indestructible and he's going to get a whole bunch of +1s when he takes damage. Overprotect, we're going to give him Trample, Hexproof, Indestructible. Tyvar as well, like Tyvar's Stand. We can just pump a huge amount of damage into this. And, you know, it's an instant speed, so we can catch people off guard with it as well. There's a huge amount of stuff that's easy. This is just the most straightforward, freaking, you know, red-green deck you could ever build. All right, now into Final Fantasy 15, the final one here, Camp Comrades. And there was only one commander for this one as well, which was Noctis Heir Apparent. Heir Apparent? Wow. If you build this as a Heir Apparent deck, I will love you, and I will love to see that, which is the one from, what was it, Foundations, that whenever it enters, it's going to create a 1/1 rabbit based off the amount of other Heir Apparents you've got. If you do that, I would love to see it. All right, so whenever a creature you control enters during combat, notably it is during combat, you may attach target equipment you control to target creature you control. It doesn't even need to be attached to him, I just realized. It can just attach to anything. So technically Myriad would mean that you get to attach like 2 things each combat to a creature. That's great. But the better part of it here is Warp Strike. So you pay 3, you exile Noctis. Now this can be done at instant speed, so you can do it during your turn, you can do it at the other person's turn, you can do it in regards to, like, you know, someone trying to use removal on him. Why not? Return it to the battlefield under its owner's control, tapped and attacking at the beginning of that player's next declare attacker step. Notably, it is not at the beginning of combat. So anything that triggers at the beginning of combat, you can't use on Noctis, unfortunately, but he also can't be blocked during that combat. So there is a huge amount of ways to take advantage of this. Unfortunately, he is going to be tapped, so you need a way to be able to untap him if you want to use him as a blocker for a bit. But, you know, there is a huge amount of great equipments. Sword of Hearth and Home is the one that I really, really like here. So it's going to give him protection from green and white. But the second part here, exile up to 1 target creature you control, then search your library for a basic land. Put both those cards onto the battlefield under your control, then shuffle. So the creature that you flicker with the sword will come back in, and then with Noctis's ability still there, you can then equip something to him again. Therefore, you can technically make it so that Sword of Hearth and Home flickers Noctis, Noctis leaves, come back, is then untapped, right? Is untapped, and then you can equip that sword back onto him. Or a different equipment if you want to. Sword of Feast and Famine is discard, and then you untap all your lands, which is great. And then, because, you know, then we have 3 mana to be able to flicker Noctis later on. Fishing Gear is just hilarious, and I really am looking forward to this one. So whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you exile the top card of that player's library. If it's a permanent, you can put it onto the battlefield under your control. If you don't, you get to create a fish as well, which is just really cool. But the thing that really, really works with Noctis is just ninjutsu, because ninjutsu technically enters during combat. Therefore, you can attach your equipments to Noctis or to whatever else, right? You can easily do some really fun things with, well, fun for you, not fun for everyone else, with ninjutsu. And then, you know, we can also, because obviously Noctis is going to be flickered, go out, then come back in during combat, we can attach one thing to him, but only one thing. So we need other ways to be able to attach things. So, you know, we can use Quest of the Holy Relic. We can use this at instant speed, sacrifice it, tutor up a equipment from, you know, from our library, and then attach it onto him at instant speed. Or, you know, Hero's Blade, whenever Noctis enters, it's just going to auto-equip to him, which is great. And then finally, you know, Battlefield Improvisation is one of my favorite cards that, you know, got overlooked by heaps because it was from Assassin's Creed. You give something +2/+2, and then you can attach any number of equipments to it as long as it was attacking. Helm of the Host as well is great because, again, you don't need to equip them onto the other, like onto Noctis. You can equip them onto anything. So if you make a copy of Noctis, and then you flicker the original Noctis. The original Noctis will come back in during your combat. Then both of those Noctises, the non-legendary copy and the legendary copy, will both have their triggers to be able to attach an equipment onto something. So you can attach both those equipments onto the OG Noctis. So you're just going to have a pile of Noctis sitting over here, which is hilarious to think about. And then the main Noctis that you can flicker, bring back in, and now let's equip 5 equipments onto him. Let's equip 8 equipments onto him, because somehow the game has got to that point. There's just a great amount of things that you can do with this. It's really funny. But that's it for today. Let me know what you guys think. And again, like, if you're interested in any of these and you're interested in, me building it for you, I would love to. I'm very, very excited about all of these. And as I said, all of this money is going to be going towards supporting us heading down to PAX. I am so insanely excited for it, and I'm insanely excited to meet any of you guys that are going to be there. So again, hit me up on Discord if you are going to be, or just, reply down in the comments or something like that. I hope you guys had a wonderful day, and goodbye.